Actually, before we talk about passwords, the idea of these pillars that I have, there's five
Oh
of
yeah,
them
yeah.
for what I call the 5 pillars of digital health. It's really a way for me to talk about 10 things because each pillar has essentially 2 things, but they're obviously very related to each other. You can't have one without the other.
Yep.
So pillar number 1 is actually passwords and security. And maybe I should put it the other way around, because security is the bigger picture. It's like the umbrella. Think of it like your digital life is a house and the passwords are the lock of your front door. But security is the whole neighborhood you live in, the streets, the connections, the piping, the wires. It's these invisible threads that run between you and literally thousands of other places that you go digitally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's do a little callback to, how this all started. Everyone knows or should know, but maybe they don't, what www means. When we used to give websites out, remember when we used to say that the W's 3 times?
Yes, and people continue to say that even though it was completely unnecessary, didn't they?
Oh, do you really find that? I don't find that people say that often anymore, but you know what it stands for, right?
The World Wide Web, or is that not? Yes.
Precisely.
Yes.
So it's a web, and we individually with our devices are one node connected by thousands, hundreds of thousands of threads in this web to websites, devices, platforms, apps, advertisers, social networks, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is that most of these threads are invisible to us. They're invisible, but they're also very real and they're very active. Think of end user agreements that you just sign all those little tiny words and you just say agree.
Oh, God,
when you are updating or downloading an app, and for example, I just took a screenshot of YouTube on my phone. I need to update my app. And right here, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'll read this to you. This is a little section that says data linked to you. And when I go to update my YouTube app, it's going to know about my purchases, financial info, location, contact info, contacts, user content, search history, browsing history, identifiers, whatever those are, usage data, diagnostics, and then other data.
Yep.
Basically,
everything.
That's a huge list of things, right?
Extraordinary.
So that's kind of setting the scene, right? The scene of our security.
Yes.
And I just want to tell a little story because I don't think I told this to you when I was on at the end of last year. Have you ever had people say to you, "My phone is listening to me"?
Have
you heard that? Have you heard that one before?
Yeah, absolutely. People joke about it. Oh, it's listening to everything. I'm talking about Egyptian towels now, and in about half an hour, I'll have some adverts for the
exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So let's peel back what's probably happening there, because this is really under the security before we get to passwords.
Yikes.
So a similar situation to what you just said, you're hanging out with a friend and you're talking about something, they mentioned something, and then the next day or the same day, you seem to see an ad for it on one of the social media networks or something. So it's not your microphone. It's this web of threads of connections. Your friend was probably searching that thing, Egyptian towels. They're connected to you on a social platform. The algorithm either knows you were in the same location, having a cafezinho together, or on a call together, or texting together. It makes that association because it knows everyone has all your contact information. It's all shared. So that's not listening, it's the threading, right? And frankly, and I'm not trying to be apocalyptic or anything, but the threading is far more sophisticated and pervasive than just an open microphone.
Yeah.
All right. So let's clarify the difference between privacy and security. Privacy is how much of yourself you expose to this giant web, and security is how well you're protected given whatever exposure you have. Now, I'm going to give you an example. You remember when I was on before Christmas, I made this claim, which is absolutely true, that I have over 1,000 passwords.
Yes. Yes. I remember you saying that. Yeah.
I have a lot of accounts, and my situation is potentially more secure than someone else's because each one of those passwords is unique and individual because I use a password manager. So even though I have lots of threads going out from me, there's no possibility of a chain reaction, of a forest fire, because I'm using some kind of the same password or a root password that's the same that someone could then figure out for other accounts that I have. Does that make sense?
It does. And that exposes a lot of people immediately, I think.
Right. So conversely, someone with very few accounts who is reusing passwords is extremely and highly exposed, while I, with 1,000+ passwords, am not exposed at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
So
think the reason we get in that situation, and
what's that?
The reason I think we get in that situation is because it's like, oh my God, I can't learn 1,000 passwords. I'll improvise on a basic theme to make it easy. But that isn't just, as I think you're pointing out, that doesn't just make it easy for me. That makes it easy for someone else who might want to have a little look.
Precisely. And there's some things that you can do, which I'll get into in just a second.
Cool.
But the last little frame is just this whole idea of digital health and what I'm all about with digital Serenity is, think about this. We get medical checkups, we get our cars serviced, we get our teeth cleaned, but very rarely are we doing an audit on our digital health.
Right.
And sitting down and asking, what are all these threads? Should I close some things down, cut some threads? What should I be doing? Which ones are necessary? Have I forgotten about some open threads? Where am I vulnerable? And that's what I do, and that's what the digital snapshot does, is to kind of look at the big picture of your footprint. So let's talk about the front door of our digital home, right? The passwords are the lock. And what happens is that most people are living, they have the key, but they also have the spare key underneath the doormat.
Yes. Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do.
So let's talk about some scenarios about passwords. Let's move into that. I know lots of people who do the paper password manager system. That's the notebook in the drawer, at their desk, and it's just literally a little notepad. If you don't have a backup of that, God forbid you have a fire or something, you're in a lot of trouble.
And you say a lot of people. Quite a lot of people do that, do they?
I find that, yeah,
wow.
in the work that I do. Or the next version of that, which feels kind of digital, is it's in an Excel file or a Google Sheets file.
Yes.
Now that we're talking about where they might put it, now also there's the other thing that I see a lot is that people use the root word system. Like, let's say your kids' names, your pet names, maybe a birth date, and then the identifier of the site or platform that you're on. So let's say it's Johnny and Jen 1 _ and it's for Spotify. So it would be like Spotify 3. That root system is one of those vulnerabilities, right? So I have 1,000 passwords. Every single one of them is different, 16, 20 characters long. Couldn't tell you what it is. Completely rely on the password manager to be able to log me in.
Yes.
So, and then the other thing that happens is you tend to forget what that custom password is that you made, with that root that's the same all the time.
Yeah.
And this time I changed the capital O to a 0 because it's good to have a number in there. And then you don't remember that. And then what happens? You get locked out. You have to reset. And then when you do these password resets, you can either, once you get back into your account, you don't remember what your password is.
I want to say, Stephen, that you're describing my password life, but I won't because that could be compromising me. But I suspect other people might be able to recognize this problem.
Absolutely.
That system only works, doesn't it? If when you try it first, the password prompting of the website says, we need a couple of characters and a number in there as well. So you have to add something which you'll never remember, as you say.
Correct. And the beauty of what we'll get into, the optimal situation of using a password manager is it has a little functionality in there generally that says if the website or platform that you're setting up your password for says it's a minimum of 12 characters, must use a special character and a number and letters, you can actually tick those little things, and it'll make the password with those criteria for you.
Yes.
But here's the thing. Again, I really stress, I'm talking about things that I see a lot, but this is not a judgment. This is a judgment-free zone. None of these systems are bad, are because it's not necessarily that it's someone's fault. They're logical responses to a problem that people just haven't thought about or haven't been taught. And that's where I and other people who do the work that I do come in.
And thank you for that. Yes, thank you. It's really necessary, because what it's also doing, I think, is challenging why we don't do that as well in a way that's helpful. Because I think there's a lot of superstition and bad habit around this, isn't there? Which I think you're coming in to help us take a look at.
The superstition is really interesting because I've tried to identify some of the misconceptions that I see about how privacy works in your digital life. Like one aspect is biometrics. Most newer devices are going to have, biometrics with your eyes or with your finger. And to me, this is the safest thing possible. However, I have a friend who thinks that that's not safe. And so he turned all that stuff off. And you can't actually get to the safest type of password, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, called a passkey. You probably heard of that. Maybe you don't know what it is or don't quite understand how it works. Passkeys are basically the safest way to log in, but they're not available on all of the sites because the provider, whether it's WhatsApp or Google, most of the big players, but a lot of the small players don't do it. They have to do a bunch of coding and programming to make it work because it's kind of like a two-key system. They have to provide a key and you provide a key. Yes. And your key is biometric and their key is some other technical thing, and they have to match. So the biometrics is one misconception because they live on, at least in the Apple world, they call it a secure enclave on the phone. It's on the chip of the phone. It doesn't ever go up to a server. It exists only on the phone.
That's good to know.
So your biometrics do not go anywhere off of your device ever.
Okay. Yeah, good to know.
So this whole idea of using passwords on multiple sites, which a lot of people do, and the bad guys, they know this, right? And they exploit it, and they have ways of automating this.
Oh my God.
You've seen stuff in a spy movie or something where they put the little thing on they're going to break open a safe and it's spinning through thousands of number combinations.
And then 20 seconds to go before a security guard arrives or before the world blows up.
This is the same thing that people are doing with passwords. They get a root password and they're already 30% there. I'm just throwing a random number out. And they call it credential stuffing, where they understand the beginning of your credentials and then they just figure out how to finish off the back end, and then they're in. Wow. And then it's a forest fire because that can link you to another account that you have and another account, and it's like a cascading effect. So it does happen. And another thing I'd like to touch on maybe a little bit later that's related to all this stuff, passwords and security and privacy, is and it's a big thing potentially for some of the Gumpers, is elder fraud, which is really scary. And that's also an AI issue because, cloning relatives' voices, those kinds of things, that stuff is happening in the real world that we're in.
Yes.
Right now.
Okay. Right.
So back to passwords. Let me ask you. You said
for my password. I'm not falling for that, Stephen. I am not.
No. I just want to know: are you willing to share what your system is, or do you not want to talk about it?
It's closer to what you said. And the more I talk to you and hear you speaking about this, the more I realize it's due for renovation. And
Okay.
to talk broadly about my personal approach to this is I was given a password long ago with my first email address, I think, with an institution I work for. And I've basically been improvising around that theme ever since. And I'm feeling like I've got egg on my face now because my
No.
wife, my wife has she comes up with these crazy long passwords. And I say, look, if you do the basically like what you said, Stephen, if you do the basic stem the same way, you'll always remember that. And then you just add a little bit on as an identifier. Now, immediately I'm seeing the error of that way because, pride comes before a fall, doesn't it? Although that might be easy for me to remember, as you've described, that's going to be an easy pattern to recognize for anybody with ill intent. So that is, and not only am I doing that, I'm also in a situation where I've got a mixture now. So I think on the one hand, like 80% of my password security is figured out because I've got a neat little system with all of my own, which I now discover can be quite easily or more easily hacked. And then I've got a load of other random ones where I've taken the decision to accept a password generated by some security system. So, I mean, basically, it's a massive mess.
Yeah. No, and
That's
that's,
the bottom line.
thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being open and honest about it. And again, no judgment, but it's not meant to scare you. It's just meant to like, let's be, let's not beat around the bush. Let's talk about this stuff. Let's
Yes,
be realistic. Let's learn. There's, that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. There's so many
exactly.
things that I don't know about other things that
Yes,
I could learn and should be open to and
yeah,
am open to. So in this realm of passwords and your whole digital life, it all kind of works, right? Until it doesn't. That's kind of how this all works. We're limping along and it's a patchwork system.
yes.
And then there can be some kind of a catastrophic event, or maybe just a close call. And that's when you realize, hey, maybe I should do something about this.
And that's very human, isn't it? To do something once something terrible happens or nearly happens, rather than
Absolutely.
go
Yeah.
proactive on it. Yeah.
So let's talk about passwords from kind of the hierarchy of the maybe weakest system that's got the most vulnerabilities to the mid-range to the top to the ultimate. And just so people can understand the path and maybe place themselves somewhere on that ladder and they can know kind of where they're at and what their options are if they want to bolster and improve it.
Okay.
So where you're at is kind of at the foundation, the bottom, because you're using a system that has that stem, that root thing, and you're storing them in strange ways, right? In different little pockets like a squirrel. Your wife has some, she makes them. You don't have a way to share them, which some of the ones that are higher up on the rung are beautiful with being able to share and commingle them with trusted people.
Okay.
And the other interesting thing is you have to type them all in.
Yes.
The system I use, I just press a button and it fills everything in for me. It fills in.
Yes.
I use multiple email addresses as my user ID. It fills that in. It fills in the password. It presses the submit button. I don't have to do anything. And when I need to copy a password, it's very easy to do from the password manager. So it actually saves a lot of time as you move through the internet and move through your apps. Getting logged in is much faster when it becomes automated rather than typing in super long passwords.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, and then some people have a hybrid, which you kind of mentioned, which is sometimes if you've turned it on within the Apple ecosystem, which I'm most familiar with, Apple had something called Keychain, which they then just changed to passwords. They have a name. Apple has a way of naming their apps so generically that you don't even know what you're talking about. So the new one is just called Apple Passwords or Apple Notes. And they're very generic, and they say what they're going to do, but it can be a little bit confusing when you're trying to say this is a proprietary password manager that Apple makes. It's built in, it's free, it's included to anyone that has an Apple device. Google has something similar, at least I know for their browser, for Google Chrome. And the point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of the big players, the device makers and the browser makers, all have their own password managers. They want you to glom onto their system. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those password managers are better than nothing. They're better than a handwritten system. They're better than a root or stem system, but they still have some issues. One is that they're ecosystem locked. So Apple's password manager doesn't play well necessarily with a Windows machine or an Android device. They're not great with emergency access, with trusted people to have access. They don't do anything more than just passwords. And that may sound strange, but the way that I use my password manager is for more than just passwords. It's a secure document system.
Oh.
That I'll talk about. It also manages other things that are important in my life, like identifications, driver's license, passports, banking information, credit card scans, all kinds of other things. A password manager can broaden its scope of what it does. And so these browser-based ones or Apple ones don't do that. They just do passwords. And then there's a portability issue of being able to move from one to another. Generally, passport managers, the next level that I'm about to talk about, they have an import-export feature. Now, people always say, I don't want my passwords to live on another entity's servers, right?
They absolutely do, Stephen, and that's come in as a question.
Absolutely.
We use a password manager and the password manager gets hacked, or what is Stephen's thoughts about what happens if the password manager company suddenly goes out of business? Many businesses fail. So what will we do if one of these does?
Great question. I will give you a direct answer in my own life. The password manager that I use was a spin-off from a very, very well-known one called 1Password, which is an industry leader. It's very Apple specific, but you can use it on any platform. And some guys from 1Password, or gals, or both, I don't know, they spun off a new company called Minimalist. I made a lifetime purchase of that one, and I've used it for the last 5 or 6 years. And last year I got an email saying they just couldn't cut it financially, and they're going to sunset the business, and we have a year to move everything off.
Oh, wow.
Perfect example. So I'm still using it. They're just not going to be doing updates to it. But the portability is I can take everything out of it relatively easy and move it to another one. Now, the person who said they do go out of business. So that answers that question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it's their only business, I always tell people, if that's your only business, you're going to do a pretty good job of trying to make sure that those passwords are safe.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Now, again, recall, I'm not a coder and I'm not an engineer, and I don't want to put a bunch of jargon and nomenclature and pretend like I know more than I do. I don't actually, I'm going to throw out a few words like encryption, those kinds of things. I personally believe that those password manager companies, if that's all that they do, the way that they are managing that data, it's not like someone could break in and just see raw passwords like, oh, this is Steven's password, it's 16 digits, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
They are encrypting these things and they need keys to open them. So even if, this is fairly extreme, even if someone could get to the raw data of a password, the way that they store it, it's not shown what it's connected to. Yeah. It's just out in the ether. There's no way someone could figure out which person it is, which platform it's connected to. They separate everything for safety and security reasons. Does that make sense?
You know what, Steven? Another filmic reference comes to mind. You know, the first one you mentioned, like Ocean's 11. I'm going in, boss. I just need 20 seconds. That's in our etched in our consciousness, isn't it? Another one is like the old detective who goes into someone else's office, opens a filing cabinet, and miraculously finds the thing they're looking for, and takes a picture of it with the spy camera or whatever, or memorizes it photographically. And that again is not how it works. What you're talking about is it's not like you can't break in, open the file, and go, there's Steven's thing, and then you leave and go and do your worst.
No, they parse all of this stuff,
yeah.
and then it comes together when it needs to. And so I have never had an account. I've never had an account hacked, not one ever.
Right.
I mean, so I'm one data point, but if someone wants to, challenge me on that, I'm not saying I'm ready for a fight, but like I'm just one data point. But literally, I have over 1,000 passwords, and I've moved from one password manager to another over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of a process because I have so many, and I use the password manager for a few other things. Like I have attached files, which makes it a little bit more complicated to do an import and an export and an import. But nevertheless, I really feel like it's a secure system. So maybe we can talk about the next level, a type of a password manager that I use, which is kind of what I see as the ultimate system.
Yep. Please do.
So, but if you're using the Chrome password manager, if you're using Apple's password manager, the beautiful thing is that you can take all the passwords from, and you might be using both actually, and I would definitely suggest to people to see if they have them turned on and didn't even realize it. And you can move all of those things off of those onto a dedicated one and integrate them into one separate thing. Okay. So let's talk about the dedicated password managers. These are companies that are offering an app or a web-based browser experience where you put all of your passwords in. Hopefully you can export them in from somewhere else, or in your case, you might have to one time go in and hand code them. But here's the thing, if you're going to take your old passwords that have the root and stem that's the same, you might as well log into all of those, chunk them out, do X amount per week, and change all of them to completely randomized passwords to tighten up your security.
Okay.
But the beautiful part of these password managers is that you can use tagging systems. You can use file and folder systems. You can put all your financial stuff under one thing. You can put, so they have all of these features that make you a whiz and master of your password domains. It's literally like you have become, it just removes all of this stress about logging in. And so, as I said before, it does an auto login feature if you turn it on. It syncs up between your devices. So you'd have an app on your phone, you'd have an app on your tablet, and every time you do something, it goes up to a server. And for the people who are concerned, by the way, about where the data is stored, some of these password managers allow you to choose where it will be stored, and it can include your own cloud files, your iCloud, your Google, stuff in Google's cloud, a Dropbox file. It can actually, you can assign where the data, even though it's all encrypted and still safe, you can assign where it's going to be, and it can be your own server. Yes. Whether it's your own and you have a network attached storage or a NAS system in your home, or you use a private company like Dropbox or Google or Apple. So that's another way to get around saying I don't want it on their servers. Mm-hmm. So some of these companies' names, and I'm not suggesting any of them, no referral or affiliate links or anything. 1Password I already mentioned is a big one. Bitwarden is another one. MPass is another one. Have you heard of any of those?
No, I think maybe the first one, but not the others.
They're all
I have done this in the past. I was turned on to it many
Oh,
years
you were.
ago, but
Yeah.
I then didn't persist with it. And I think it was probably much more in the early days of this. And I can hear how it's evolved into a very
Yeah.
impressive
I
product.
mean, I've been using these. There was one called RoboPass. I mean, we're talking 15
Yeah,
years
I
ago.
think I had something like that when it first came out. I thought that's a great idea. I'll give that a go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So these and the costs for these things, they're fairly minimal. I mean, we're talking anywhere between, I'm going to use dollars or euros. I mean, we're talking anywhere between $15 euros a year
Mm.
to maybe 60 or 70 annually,
Yeah.
or some of these offer a lifetime purchase, like the one that I did, even though they're going out of business, and that was, I think, 50 or 60 euros. So I got good use out of it for 5 years, and now I'm going to go to another system. No
And you
problem.
sound quite unstressed about that, which is also
Um,
a good thing.
it's a bit of a project, and the reason that it's a bit of a project for me is because I rely heavily on some of that other functionality, which I'll
Okay.
talk about right now.
Yeah.
So most people, when we say password manager, we're thinking, oh, it manages the passwords. Yes, it does. That's a big chunk of what it does, and it can only do that. But I like the password managers that have some other functionality because I like to think of it as a secure vault for my entire digital life. I
That
don't
makes
want
sense.
to have my healthcare directive or my will and testament or other types of documents living on Google Drive. I want them in my password manager because that's how I see it. And then so you and one of the other pillars, the last pillar of the 5 pillars of digital health, is legacy and access. And
Yes.
and it means, yeah, so what's going to happen if you can't talk for yourself, or you have a medical issue and you can't,
Mm.
and what is the legacy of your digital world and who can access it? And the way that that happens can be through one of these password managers that acts also as a digital vault, where you can have your ICE, or in case of emergency situation, it can have. So let me just explain to you how I do this. So I have all my passwords. They're all automated. I don't know any of them. I let it generate them. I have the auto login turned on. So when I go to a site, it little thing pops up and says, "Do you want to fill this in?" And I say yes, and it just logs me in. Um, I use the document upload for all of my credit cards and banking cards, and I have all the information, the phone number that I might need to call in case that card is physically stolen or lost. And I will even take a scan of the front and the back. I do that with my driver's license. I do that with my passport, as I mentioned. And
Very good.
so many of these password managers have these sections where it's, besides the passwords, it's these other important documents that live in our lives. Maybe the codes for buying software. I'm forgetting what that's called right now. You've got some giant, code that's customized for you because you bought some software, and you need
Oh
to
yeah.
write
The keys. The
the
keys,
key.
aren't they?
Thank you. The license key. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has places where you can store that. Um,
Oh.
and so I use all of the features of one of these more robust password managers because I like to consolidate everything into one place in my digital life and know that it's basically like a Swiss, uh, bunker. It's impenetrable.
Another film reference.
Yeah.
Yes. James Bond is in there now, rooting around.
Exactly. And then there's a capability for many of these to have a shared family vault where it will have, 5 people, and you can have subsections or certain parts of the vault shareable between people. So this is great for, couples, people that have their kids still in their household, or multi-intergenerational people who need to share things between each other.
Yes.
This is a great way to manage that because if someone were to change a password, the other person that is sharing that account would know what that updated password is without having to ask them. It would just log you in automatically, which is pretty cool. So that's the dedicated password manager. Is any thoughts or comments about that.
We do have comments and questions. But how much more time do you need to do this justice this morning, Stephen?
I was just, the only other thing I was going to talk about is this idea of passkeys, so people understand it, because people hear the word passkeys, or they might see something pop up that says passkey, and I can quickly explain that and tell you why.
Do you want to do that? I mean, I've got questions and comments here, and a bit of a
let's do some questions.
So I think maybe about. Can you do another 10 minutes or so? Yeah, okay, all right. So if you complete on the passkey thing, then we'll cover some of the questions after that.
Okay. So so the passkey is kind of the ultimate. And as I kind of alluded before, a passkey replaces your password entirely because it's not a string of characters to remember, steal, or guess. It's and the analogy is, think of an old school safety deposit box. It's a two-key system. Your key is your biometric, your face, your eyes, or your fingerprint. And the other key belongs to the provider, and both are needed to make the match, to log in. They make a digital handshake to each other, and neither key alone opens anything. So even if the company did get hacked, there's no password to steal. The thing is that it requires some programming, and only many of the major players offer it, like Apple, Google, Amazon, PayPal, WhatsApp, and other ones. But smaller things that you may have, accounts, don't have that offered yet.
Okay.
So if something pops up that says, would you like to set up a passkey? My recommendation is hell yes.
Okay, yes, all right. Okay. That's passkeys and our general introduction to the first of the 5 pillars of digital health, then passwords and security. I will make a segment of this and make it available probably on AI Old Guy resources, because these videos are so helpful, Stephen. And if people want to consult you directly, they go to digitalserenity.live, which takes them to your website and where your service is available. Thank you for being here. Let's go to a few of these questions then. Jason's, don't feel obliged to address all of these. We will have you back on a regular basis to go through these pillars, so people can save their questions as well. And maybe we can create another scenario in which we can do a webinar with you. Never ever use facial recognition, says Jason. Also, folk can piggyback your Wi-Fi and use a keystroke logger to determine your main password and gain entry to your password managed to get everything. Those are Jason's comments, including as well, I understand that the highest form of encryption is based around plotting the ever-shifting forms of essentially a lava lamp, so the encryption code is constantly shifting. Do you have anything to say about any of Jason's comments here?
Yeah, I mean, there again, we're talking about the bell curve of most people. So Jason might know things that I don't know. And think about the spectrum of where people are at with their passwords and security. There's one type of security that I didn't mention, which is a fob, which is literally a little device that you plug in, and it has a fingerprint reader.
Oh, yeah.
The passwords are literally on that device, and if you lose that, you're in trouble, and you keep it on your keychain.
Yeah.
So when he says that using biometrics, I don't know what's wrong with a biometric. I mean, it is completely custom to you. And as far as I know, at least within the Apple ecosystem, that exists only on this device, does not get sent to a server. So I'm not sure why he says that.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
And what was the other part, though? It was about
well, there's more here. About lava lamps as well. When quantum, it was this comment here. I understand the highest form of encryption is based around the plotting the ever shifting forms. Something that changes like that. I think that's the point that's being made there, is reassuring.
Yeah.
And also, when quantum processors finally come to fruition, no password or form of encryption will be safe. This is a good one to address, to the point that Bitcoin encryption would be solved in seconds rather than years. What do you make of that? We're not there yet, though, are we?
Listen, that is, I don't think we're there, and that's well beyond my scope of understanding. I don't do Bitcoin.
Yes.
I understand about like rolling codes. We didn't talk about two-factor authentication and what that is, and how that's a level of security to protect passwords, where you get those OTPs or those one-time codes that are sent to you by text, or the rolling codes that are every 30 seconds that you use with an authenticator app. This is a little bit more advanced for people, and I'm trying to get to the bell curve and talk to the masses.
You're doing a great job.
I think that what Jason is talking about is way out on the fringe, and it's maybe even beyond my scope of understanding. and it just may not be super helpful to other people because
I think he would be open to that assessment, and that's why we love him, because he is out on the fringe and he brings up interesting things to discuss.
Yes, but I'm not meaning to be disparaging in any way. It's just that, like, I'm on a lot of AI chats and I see stuff, and it can be so complicated.
Yeah.
And the work that I do is really for the people who are like, I keep getting locked out of my account. I mean, this is where I'm at, and these are my clients, and so I don't want to talk about anything that I don't really know about, because
That's fair enough, and you do have to have a scope and a context. These are interesting conversation points, I think, for a late night drink in many ways.
Yeah.
And they are questions that should be asked. Do you think that? But this is not maybe what we're dealing with this morning. But I do find it fascinating, Jason. Do you think that when CBDC and social core are implemented, that when they are, says Jason, that work on the premise that all personal digital is overt, the passwords would become defunct or possibly illegal? Wow. Okay. Again, let's leave that as a philosophical discussion for another time.
I think I could learn a lot from Jason, because I don't even know what some of those.
Me too. I think the three of us should definitely have a beer one night. Someone once gave me the idea, more input Country Bear, of using the first letter of every word of favorite passages from books as a route. I used to do that at work, where we had to change our password that's your own rolling system. Thanks for being here, Marcus. I think this is a joke. I just use a time machine to access an Enigma machine to generate my passwords, and then I encrypt with the Da Vinci Code. Cheeky. Stephen, you're lucky they gave you notice of going out of business. I mean, that's good business etiquette. I love companies that do that and take that seriously. The Squire asks, would a VPN help with that online electronic security? Have you got a quick answer to that one, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, VPN can be used for different things. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it creates a secure tunnel between your device and another one. It also can change your IP address, so it can literally circumvent things that are geo restricted. A lot of people use it for streaming content from, let's say, the States or from the UK that's not available in other places. It can be used for banking purposes, and it can use, to anonymize yourself on the web and doing activities. So that I use one for any and all of those reasons. And it is definitely part of your overall security arsenal, for sure.
Very good. Thanks, Squire, for that. My son does all that security stuff and keeps onto us to do it. I will now. So that's a great prompt. We're learning Portuguese because it's International Portuguese Language Day, and a prompt here to take your digital security a little bit more safely, seriously, I should say, and safely, of course. Joao Ernesto, this is a perennial, isn't it? I have a problem with someone or some entity other than myself knowing and controlling my passwords. And in conjunction with that, Stephen, I have used LastPass. I think that was the one I used, actually, for almost 10 years. But they got hacked last year, and they say my data was not compromised, but concerning. Also worried that the bad press will send them out of business. Yeah, that's a secondary concern there. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, some of these companies definitely have breaches, but I think that the media conflates exactly what's happening. That, as I mentioned, I really don't. I think that they're parsing the information and they're not attaching it to any one thing. Yes, it's bad that they had a breach. And again, not to be apocalyptic, but when you think about how many threads we each have going out to the world.
Yes.
Even if you dial in your passwords and you're trying to manage them yourself, and you have weaker passwords, I would say that you have traded one security threat and vulnerability for another when you do those kinds of. So it's really trying to look at the big picture. So if someone disagrees or has hard data that says otherwise, hey, these password companies, when or if they get hacked, my actual passwords are available. I'm not so sure that that's the case. And again, in all the years I've been using one, I have never been hacked, and I feel safer doing it that way than having it on a piece of paper or using a STEM system.
And just finally then, like this and so many other important things, you can get into a kind of whataboutery about it, can't you? You can which is a kind of completely self-defeating way of looking at it.
Yeah, it can become circular, and then you don't end up doing anything.
Exactly. So, I mean, my what occurs to me is you could ask these two questions: do I have a system, and do I trust the system? And we can run your suggestions through this, Stephen, which I think leads to a conscious system, a conscious choice of a system that is highly secure and works for you has got to be better than the thing you've improvised over the years and you don't feel entirely comfortable with. And I think that's where a lot of people are at. It's like, yes, I do have a system, but it doesn't work very well, but it's the best I've got. It's kind of human nature, isn't it? If you're ready to take a step and have a system that really works for you, and I got this great sense that if you truly implement what you're talking about, you will change your sense of personal confidence and security and mastery of the situation, rather than having that nagging doubt in the back of your mind. Well, yeah, I do have a system, but I don't know if it really works, and I'm just waiting to see what happens. That's not a secure and safe mindset, is it?
Yeah, and I loved what you said about the two questions, and kind of passing through any scenario through those, and I really agree that having a system that is at least potentially more robust than what you have now, at least now you have a framework to test it against, rather than not even understanding really fully what your framework is, right?
Yeah, and that's the circular thing, isn't it? Because then when people don't understand or completely trust it, they think, I can't think about this anymore. I'm just going to stay with what I've got. And that is where the danger lies, essentially.
Yeah, and it's like, you think about this. People rarely check privacy settings that they have on their devices or on the services that they use, where you can dial things in. And let's face it, a lot of the big companies that are making these devices and apps, they configure the thing for maximum data collection, not maximum privacy, generally.
Yeah.
So you need to review your location settings, your app permissions, your ad tracking. And it can be really shocking when you go through these settings on your phone and you do an audit. Like, oh my gosh, when I downloaded this, it basically turned everything on, and now and you have to go in and dial everything back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's this idea of, okay, our passwords we can try and control in some way. If you don't want to use facial recognition, use something else, but have a system that's reliable, that's repeatable, that isn't a point of friction for yourself, having to type in long passwords, whatever it is, using one of those authenticators or whatever it is. And you're just trying, again, everything that I do with Digital Serenity is about reducing the friction, which then reduces the feeling, like you were saying, of like, my digital world is kind of on fire, or it's like a low grade fever, and I just don't know how to.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what you're avoiding, isn't it? That feeling. You avoid the feeling that comes when you start to think about it. And with any human change, that's the first bit to get through, isn't it? It's like, okay, I can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to take a big step beyond this. And you have given us your encouragement to do so, Stephen. As you said, you're not connected in any way with any particular company, but what's the one you use if people want a starting point?
Well, the one that I use is going out of business. So
okay. We're not going to recommend that.
I won't recommend that one, but the one that I'm likely going to switch to is one called NPass, ENPASS.
NPass. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want some personal help with this, if you're ready to take a step, digitalserenity.life, and Stephen will work with you. You can see what he offers and how to get involved.
And I've got the free digital snapshot where we'll cover those five pillars of digital health with you, and we'll go over all of them with you in about 30 minutes, and I'll kind of see where you're at, and then give you some recommendations on how to fix some things for free.
What a brilliant service. The only thing left then is to get over yourself. I'm not talking to you, Stephen. I'm talking about whether it's learning Portuguese or dealing with this situation. It is that first thing, isn't it, of like getting over yourself and your own personal world of objection, and then moving into a state of awareness, mastery, and reducing the friction, and feeling a whole lot better about it ultimately after a little bit of work, and lifting the lid or picking up the rug and seeing what's been pushed under. Cheers, Stephen. Thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time, and thank you for running over and just going through this with us this morning. So I really
great conversation.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause for you and for everybody who's been in this morning. I'm sure people have got value, and we'll see you again next time. We'll be doing pillar number 2, won't we? We've done pillar number 1 this morning, which has been passwords and security. And next time we see Stephen, we will be going into email